Welcome to your Canadiens Connection on Rocket Sports Radio. We are proud to be the trusted source for all things Habs for more than a decade. This is the Canadiens Connection Podcast. Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to the Canadiens Connection podcast here on Rocket Sports Radio, keeping you informed, engaged, and entertained, Habs fans everywhere. Welcome again. My name is Amy Johnson. I'll be your host for today's show for episode 320 of the Canadiens Connection podcast called Recalibrating Expectations, Habs, quote, in the danger zone.
Ooh.
Why do I feel like we should cue like the Top Gun theme at this point? Highway. Okay, no, you don't want me to
Kenny
sing.
Loggins.
And my co-host in studio with me will be very pleased if I don't sing that song out loud. He is the editor-in-chief, founder, and president of Rocket Sports, Mr. Rick Stevens. How are you doing today? I'm imagining you're doing well, knowing that you've dodged a bullet listening to me sing Kenny Loggins.
Happy November.
Happy November.
It's
November 2nd.
chilly 5 degrees in Montreal, but the Canadiens are in Pittsburgh, in your state.
It's a lovely. Was supposed. Well, it was.
You're going to get this in Celsius or
No.
Okay.
It was 83 degrees Fahrenheit here 2 days ago.
Okay.
Which was it was the warm, like, forget the jackets for the trick-or-treaters on Halloween. It was, like bathing suit weather. But it's a nice seasonable,
Belated
mid-60s.
happy Halloween to you and our
you.
listeners. And don't forget, clocks back. If you're listening, we're recording on Saturday. If you're listening on Saturday.
We gain an hour of sleep. We gain an hour of sleep. We gain an hour of sleep. It's my favorite day.
You're perky today. So all the Halloween candy, you didn't have anybody at your house. You've just been gorging on Halloween candy?
I bought 2 giant bags of Halloween candy, and there was only one set of 2 children that came to my door.
Oh, wow.
So I have all the Reese's peanut butter cups I want.
That's what kind of show it's going to be.
Woo-hoo.
Perky. Yeah.
You're all very excited. I can hear the groaning from our listeners now.
Yeah.
Like, oh, she's on one of those moods today.
The Canadiens are not perky. They were not perky after Friday's practice. I can tell you that. There was some guys laying on the ice after the bag
A
skate.
little bit of bag skate. We're going to talk about that. Hey, Paul Byron, speaking of before we move away from trick-or-treating, Paul Byron, it's very nice of him. Paul Byron's a good team guy, always likes to make sure everybody feels included. He's always done that. But how would you like to trick-or-treat at Paul Byron's house, and then David Reinbacher opens the door to hand out your candy?
A great gesture. Paul Byron, one of the development coaches, and it's tough for David Reinbacher to feel included given his long-term injury. But why not expose him to, one of the cultural events in North America and let him be part of your Halloween celebrations?
What I want to know is, who is Paul Byron inviting over to help bake your birthday cake? Or pie.
Yeah, pie would be good. Maybe this guy.
Hi Rick, it's Teemu Selänne here. Hope all is well and greetings from California. Happy birthday, dear Rick. Happy birthday to you.
I keep that nearby. I keep that quite nearby.
For our newer listeners, that is literally Teemu Selänne, literally singing Rick Stevens personally, directly, happy birthday.
Yeah, that was pretty special.
And for those of you that don't know, happy early birthday to my co-host Rick. Your birthday is on Tuesday.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
I hope you get lots of pie.
That would be great. That's all I need.
Maybe the Canadiens will win a game for you on Tuesday night.
Well, yeah, that'd be nice too.
That'd be nice too. So today we are going to traverse through the games that the Canadiens played, the 4 games the Canadiens played since our last episode. We thought it was going to go well, and then, well, if we want to keep the Top Gun theme going, they really hit the deck, crashed and burned.
Yeah.
We're going to get into all of that. We've got roster updates to get to you. We've got injury updates. We've got prospect updates. Michael Hage, Tyler Thorpe, Ivan Demidov. Some really, if you're looking for some positivity, make sure that you focus on our prospects, our prospects section today, because the prospects are where all of the optimism is right now. Mm-hmm. We're gonna get you caught up on that. The Laval Rocket, boy, do we have a great update for you there, as well as the Trois-Rivières Lions. We've got some interesting comments from Elliotte Friedman to share with you this week when we get into our hockey notes and so forth. Well, interesting comments from Elliotte Friedman as well as Paul Maurice. I'm just going to leave it at that. And then all of that leads to segment 2. The title of this episode is Recalibrating Expectations, Habs, quote, in the danger zone. Our big topic is called Great Expectations. Is more patience required? We're really going to examine the Canadiens and their fans found themselves staring just absolute dismay and despair right in the face this week. There's no more avoiding the fact that things have fallen off a cliff. Absolutely. And so where does Marty St. Louis go from here? Where do the players go from here? Where does Kent Hughes and Jeff Gorton go from here? Where do the fans go from here? It's a long season ahead. We're only a month into it. So we're going to kind of take a look at all of the different aspects of what's going on and how to maybe go forward. And we're going to hear a lot from St. Louis and some of the players in terms of their reaction to this past week. Finally, then, in our third segment, we've got some great... first of all, we have got a very fun Canadiens Connection question of the week for all of you to answer. So you're going to want to stick around for that. We want to hear your answers because, as we do every week, we pick some of the best ones and read them on the following week's show. And we have some great comments from last week that we want to share with you. So we have a lot to get to today. If you would like to be part of the show, if you would like to have your voice heard as a Habs fan or a Laval Rocket fan or a hockey fan, make sure you send us a text 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, anytime you want on our Rocket Sports text line. That's 5853-ROCKET. Also, be sure you're following at Habs Connection on X or Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. And of course, be sure you are subscribed to this podcast on your favorite podcast platform. Or if you are watching on YouTube, even if you're not watching on YouTube, go to our YouTube channel. Go to InsideTheCanadiens.com. That will take you right to our YouTube channel. Make sure you hit subscribe and tap the notification bell. All right, so things started off in the last week really well. After last week's show, Montreal was hosting St. Louis last Saturday night, and what a delightful outing that was. Montreal winning at 5-2. Lane Hutson dazzling fans, dazzling journalists, dazzling his coaches. It was a feel-good night.
There was a bit of a parallel this past week to the week before because you had the big loss against the Rangers, and maybe not a surprise given the Rangers, who the Rangers are and how they're playing this year, but just it was an ugly loss. And then a tough practice. Actually, they had 2 days of practice with a day off. But an intense practice, certainly on the Friday. And then they came out and looked pretty good on Saturday against the Blues. And one of the things that was noted was the much discussed hybrid defensive zone system was changed. Now, on that Friday, that's a week ago, more than a week ago, Marty St. Louis said, I'm not budging. We're not making any tweaks. This is the system. The guys have to learn it. It's what we're doing this year. Saturday, all of a sudden, there was a flip, and you ask the defenseman, Lane Hutson. Yes, we were playing more man to man now, and they were they looked much more comfortable. The team as a whole played better in its own end, and that led to the victory. And then on to Philadelphia.
That's right. Now, Philadelphia has had their share of struggles this season, of course. And Montreal, thankfully, eked out a victory, but it was a tight one. And they had to stave off a very last-minute comeback attempt by the Flyers on Tuesday night. Montreal won 4-3, but it got a little nail-bitey there towards the end of the third period.
Yeah, the Canadiens took advantage of a rookie goaltender making his NHL debut. I think they got a little bit comfortable. The Flyers scored twice in the last 4 minutes or so. And I don't think happy with the win for sure, but I don't think Marty St. Louis was very happy with his troops after that game.
Well, if he wasn't happy with them after that game, then the following game, when the Seattle Kraken came to town, was probably this was the Tuesday night game. I misspoke a moment ago. Philly was Sunday night. It was a Sunday evening game. So Tuesday night, the Kraken came to town. And let's see, Sam Montembeault got chased out of the net in the first 10 minutes of the game, giving up 4 goals, something like that.
He made it to
the second period,
early in the second period,
but they were down 4-0 very early, and they lost this one 8-2. It was just a complete mess.
Yeah, and Caden Primo wasn't great when he came in. Habs fans were not happy. They were interesting. They booed the power play, the first wave, and then when Matheson exited the ice and Hudson came on, every time he touched the puck, they cheered. But it was Brendan Montour got a hat trick. That's how bad it was. Yeah, that's how bad it was. And
his first?
Yeah.
I think it was first career NHL hat trick.
Yeah, that's right. And after the game, Marty St. Louis said, we don't play well on Tuesdays. Of course, the week before it was the Rangers, which prompted fans. This is a little odd. They ran over to change.org and they set up a petition for the NHL to ban Canadiens games on Tuesday and on Tuesdays. Oddly, there are not a lot, but there are signatures. That's a little bit silly.
Sometimes the internet just needs to go away. Well, if they don't play well on Tuesdays, then apparently the new theme is going to be that they don't play well on Thursdays either, because on Halloween night, it was a spooktacular event in Washington, D.C., visiting the Washington Capitals. Former Canadiens goaltender Charlie Lindgren manning the crease for the Caps. And it was Caden Primo in net for the Montreal Canadiens. And this was more of a back and forth match until the third period. And then Washington just kind of said, we're done playing. We're done toying with you. Let's just put you out of your misery and beat them 6-3.
Yeah. Well, in terms of possession time, in terms of shots, in terms of high danger scoring chances, it was all Washington. But miraculously, Montreal was still in it. 0-0 after the first, 3-3 after the second. They had somehow scratched and clawed and kept themselves in the game, and then just collapsed in the third period. And Marty St. Louis spoke about them giving away the game, that this was self-inflicted. These were self-inflicted wounds, and that's what he was most upset about.
Absolutely.
And he used some very colorful terms, which
you're going to hear in a few minutes, because we're going to play them for you. So all of that, just a really, really poor week so far, and they've got another game coming here Saturday night. We'll see what happens there. But leaving the Canadiens currently with just 9 points on the season. They are 4-6-1 to start the season, 25th in the NHL. If I keep saying maybe they ought to redefine which mix they're supposed to be in. Because in the mix that was alluded to at the beginning of the season is nowhere to be seen. It's not going well. That's for sure. Make sure that you keep tabs on the Canadiens through our Twitter account. You can follow us at Rocket Sports. Post your comments on our game recaps over at hockeybuzz.com. You just go to hockeybuzz.com, tap the Canadiens logo, and that will take you straight to our content page. Rick always has a game recap following the Montreal Canadiens games, and as well, Chris G and myself also contribute some written articles as well. Make sure you leave comments there if you have feedback about those particular games and articles. And of course, as I said, go to our YouTube channel, InsideTheCanadiens.com, and subscribe for that as well. In terms of the roster, there was a little bit of shuffling around. Lucas Candata was loaned back to the Laval Rocket on Monday. If you remember, he was recalled after Saturday's game to travel with the team to Philadelphia because there was a big question mark around Josh Anderson's availability.
Yeah, Josh Anderson injured Saturday's game. But surprisingly, took the flight and played on Sunday night. So Candata back to Laval in time for their action this week.
And with some other defensemen getting healthy this week that we're going to mention in just a moment, that left Logan Mailloux on the outside looking in. On Wednesday, the team returned him to the Laval Rocket as well. And overall, I have to say, Logan Mailloux did an admirable job in his first lengthy, if you want to call a couple of weeks lengthy, most of the month of October, NHL stint. If you recall, he only got to play one game at the end of last season, the very last game of the season. So this was his first any type of extended look at NHL play, and I think he did a pretty good job and probably learned a lot of great lessons to work on in Laval.
Yeah, for sure. Well, and he knows what he has to work on.
That's
he
right.
acknowledged that he had flashes. I would say a little more than flashes. Really good moving the puck, good offensive instincts, and got a goal and led to some good play. He needs some work in his own zone. Mm-hmm. He plays physical, and that's a good addition to the Canadiens' back end. But yeah, with the Gouli and Justin Barron coming back, there was they needed to make room, and it was Logan Mailloux who headed to Laval.
That's right. And as you say, Gouli and Barron both returned to the lineup this week, as did Juraj Slafkovský. So those three back healthy again. And actually, Barron played on Thursday night, as did Gouli. But he is going to be a healthy scratch on Saturday night. We'll get to that in just a second. Just to wrap up injury updates, if you're looking again for the light at the end of the tunnel, Patrick Laine is reportedly no longer wearing a brace on his leg, which means his rehabilitation on that injury is coming along, and hopefully maybe in another month or so, maybe we might see him.
Yeah, we talked about the heavy brace he was wearing after surgery, and was very visible with his Halloween costume, which was fun all in itself. But no longer wearing that brace and reportedly just walking with a slight limp.
That's good. I mentioned that Barron is going to be a healthy scratch on Saturday night. The Habs are in Pittsburgh to take on the Penguins on Saturday night. Jack-Eye is going to draw back into the lineup in this game. Barron will be a healthy scratch, and Sam Montembeault getting the start in net.
Yeah, this is going to be an interesting one. The two worst defenses in the National Hockey League going up against each other. The worst and the second worst in terms of goals against per 60, 5-on-5. So we'll see what results on Saturday night.
Not good foreshadowing for
maybe
a goaltender who's been struggling.
Yeah,
as
maybe
well.
fun in terms of number of goals scored.
It could be. There is a report, according to Elliotte Friedman, that the Habs are doing their due diligence for looking for a forward with an edge, someone who plays with an edge.
Elliotte Friedman mentioned that on Hockey Night in Canada a week ago. It came up again in his 32 Thoughts podcast, both the fact that they're looking for a right-handed defenseman and a forward with edge. And there are players and we're going to get to Laval in a minute, but you think of, Condado, who was called up, the captain, and he plays with edge. Jared Davidson does as well. But Luke Tuck, once he gets on the way, that'll be a nice addition. He'll be that player that I think they have in mind in the future.
Absolutely. Well, speaking of Laval, why don't we got some other prospects to talk about before we get to Laval, but let's turn our focus to our weekly Habs prospect report.
It's time for the Rocket Report. The Rocket Sports Media Team is your premier source for information about the Laval Rocket, the AHL affiliate of the Montreal Canadiens, as well as Habs prospects playing in the CHL, NCAA, and leagues around the world.
All right. Well, this week we highlight a Montreal Canadiens prospect every week. This week we're shining the spotlight on one of the NCAA prospects playing for the University of Michigan. That is forward Michael Hage. You recall that he was the other first-round draft pick for the Canadiens this past summer. They moved up to select him 21 overall. And boy, despite the fact that Michigan is not having a great start to their season, Michael Hage certainly is. 4
goals, 4 assists, 8 points in his first 7 games. Scored the overtime winner this week. He's looking great, and so much so that there's a lot of talk already by scouts, by journalists who follow the University of Michigan, that it could be one and done. It could be 1 year in the NCAA with an eye to moving to the Montreal Canadiens at the end of this season, joining the Canadiens at the end, and then be ready to put in a full season next year. And so TVA Sport did an interview with Michael Hage and asked him the question, and of course he gave the right answer, that it's been 7 games in the NCAA, and it's much too early, and he'll make the decision with his family and his advisors at the end of the year. And he said, quote, "The opinion of the Montreal Canadiens will also come into play, but I don't think they're in any hurry either." And he added, "It's still early, and I love it here at the University of Michigan." So lots of good news. Boy, it'd be nice to see him as the second line center of the future, perhaps. We'll see if he stays at center, but really impressing all those who watch him play. And in fact, there's going to be one additional person watching him play. Kent Hughes went this weekend to watch Michael Hage play.
No pressure.
Mm-hmm.
No pressure. But good that Kent is making his way out to get eyes on him himself and to watch him play. Another 2024 draft pick who has had some success so far this week and this season was the Canadiens' 5th round selection, number 130 overall. That's Tyler Thorpe, who is currently playing for the Vancouver Giants.
He made an impression at development camp. We talked about him a fair bit, but he's off to a great start in the WHL. 14 points in 14 games, and that includes 3 goals in the last 2 games, as we mentioned.
Can't forget about the most talked about prospect right now for the Montreal Canadiens, and also from this year's draft. Selected 5th overall, Ivan Demidov. Boy, he is just... What I really like about how this is shaping up is everyone was so excited about Demidov and excited about his gameplay. Then there got to be the constant questioning about his ice time and his usage, and that kind of started to almost be a bit of distraction for fans and so forth, and even journalists alike that were concentrating so much on that. But I love that Demidov has just kind of, no matter what's going on with his deployment and ice time and all that kind of stuff, he's just going out there and he's playing his game, and he continues to make what he does on the ice the story each and every week. He's on a 7-game point streak, KHL Rookie of the Week for the 2nd week in a row, and that's the 3rd time this season.
That's right.
Top 20 in scoring. You give us the numbers. He's top 20 in scoring.
Top 20, I think around number 15 in KHL scoring, 6 goals, 13 assists, more of a playmaker, 19 points in 22 games. And a lot of that has come, as we know, with limited ice time. The ice time has kind of sorted itself out the last week or so. He's playing 14, 16 minutes. Interesting that the Canadiens didn't even have to go over. They signaled that they would be heading to Russia to see him in person, and all of a sudden his ice time seems to have taken a bump. He's also 2nd in the KHL in plus minus. He's a plus 17. So he's doing just fine. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. All right, switching gears to the Laval Rocket. I'm going to start with the unfortunate news, and that's the injury report. Really, really tough news for Philippe Méchard, who has had a very strong start to his season, but he suffered a lower body injury last weekend, and he's actually going to be out for about 8 to 10 weeks. So we are likely not going to see him again until probably around the holidays or maybe around the new year, which is a really tough thing to see for a rookie to lose that kind of time, particularly when he had started the season with some pretty strong play, forming 1/3 of what was looking to be a really fun and very strong third line, which was Jared Davidson, Owen Beck, and Philippe Méchard. So really unfortunate to see Méchard out for a couple of months or more. We're certainly hoping that he gets better on the shorter end of that.
And kind of a play, almost like a David Reinbacher thing, where it didn't look that serious
like
initially,
much of anything.
But and the Canadiens are only saying, or the Laval Rocket are only saying lower body. They haven't specified the injury, but it looked like maybe a knee tweak or something as he went down and was left the game immediately.
Another concerning injury, which hopefully isn't going to be anything as long because he's currently only listed as day-to-day. But goaltender Jakub Dobeš, who has absolutely not only picked up from where he left off with a strong second half of the season last year in his rookie campaign, but he also had a very impressive training camp with the Montreal Canadiens in preseason, and he has continued that with some just outstanding play in the crease in the first part of Laval's season. But he is currently day-to-day. He did not play on Friday night. We don't know what exactly the injury there is either, but hopefully that's not going to take him too long to recover from.
Yeah, and Canadiens fans had kind of discovered Jakub Dobeš. Not everyone follows the AHL. He had a great season last year, but they kind of discovered him this year, and there's been more chatter about him. Mm-hmm. And he was off to a good start. You knew something was odd because after the win on Wednesday night, he didn't stay in the net and accept congratulations as is usual. He didn't proceed to the center ice to acknowledge the fans. He bolted to the dressing room right after the expiration of play. So, I think he knew something was wrong.
One other thing, it was just announced by Laval today that Jared Davidson will not play in their Saturday afternoon matinee, that he needs some further medical evaluation. So there's a question mark as to whether or not he's going to get an injury designation or not, but he will not play on Saturday. On the happy side of things, Florian Jacki scored his first pro goal.
Nice.
In fact, there have been, over the course of the last 2 weeks, there have been a number of players who have had a first for the season. And that was actually kind of the topic of my most recent Rocket Hockey Report video on our YouTube channel, where I talk in depth about how they've played over the course of the week, some really fun stats. Like if you're looking for Habs related hockey to get excited about, the Laval Rocket is where you want to be focusing your attention right now. So I invite you all to head over to our YouTube channel and check out that episode. And you know, it's one of those things. I'm pleased with how Pascal Vincent is handling things so far. Take, for instance, I'll just give you a quick example. Last night, they were playing the first of a back-to-back series against the Providence Bruins, and Laval only had a 1-goal lead, 2-1, late in the third period. And watching the game, there's only like a minute and a half, 2 minutes left in the game. Providence is pushing really, really hard. Providence has played a little bit harder in the third period. And who is taking the face-off in the defensive zone? Florian Jacki. Pascal Vincent so far is following through with those promises of, I'm going to put young players in precarious positions so that they learn. And it wasn't automatically, a Brandon Gignac out there taking that face off or a Lucas Condata, something like that. So pleased to see how Pascal Vincent has been handling things. And certainly the coaching style seems to be working. Whatever systems he's got seems to be working. Well, speaking of systems, Rick, you mentioned that hybrid system, the hybrid defense system that Marty St. Louis has going in Montreal, on and off now. we don't know how consistent that's going to be, but with Logan Mailloux getting sent down this week, that was one of the first things that he was asked about. Reporters wanting to know what the differences in the defensive systems between the Canadiens and the Rocket are. And our own Chris G actually was there in the scrum while Logan Mailloux was talking about this.
It's a tough question. I think it's different for every team. So I feel like, I don't know if you notice it now, but they're playing a different system here than there. So some similarities, but differences too. So I don't know, to be honest. It's a tough question for me to answer. I mean, I don't make the systems, but I don't know, to be honest. It's a tough one, but I mean, it's going all right down here. So yeah.
Well, and listen,
poor Logan.
Yeah, this is not meant to criticize or embarrass Logan, but he was very uncomfortable answering that question. And the question was, asking about is there a difference between the defensive system in Montreal versus Laval? Logan Mailloux has had exposure to both. He would know. And he said, he said a couple of different things. He said, I don't know if you recognized it, but there's a different system here that's in Laval than there in Montreal. So remember there was a TVR reporter, I think it was Anthony Martineau, that went around and asked Logan Mailloux and Lane Hudson and Jaden Struble and have you ever played the hybrid system before? And they all said no. Logan Mailloux said, we didn't use that in Laval last year. We had a completely different system. It was more man-to-man. But he said Pascal Vincent is teaching the hybrid system this year. That was a few weeks back. So he goes up to Montreal. They're using the hybrid system. Everybody is struggling. Forwards, defense, making the reads on that system. Then all of a sudden, Marty changes it more to, and the players confirmed, more of a man-to-man system. But they're still teaching the hybrid system in Laval. So Logan says, and is very uncomfortable. He knows how big this issue is. He knows that he has to be careful because any kind of comment that's perceived as criticism will just blow up. So
Absolutely.
he very...
That's why I say poor Logan. He was so uncomfortable.
Yeah, but he very carefully kind of navigated that question. But it's clear that there is now... there's a difference again between the defensive system that's being employed in Montreal versus Laval.
Well, absolutely. Chris, our colleague Chris G, also provided us a quote from Pascal Vincent, translated from French. Vincent saying that the system is the same with some minor tweaks based on their opponents. And you kind of heard Logan say, he said, they're different, but they also have similarities too. I think that was kind of his way of trying to cover all of his bases, but also acknowledging that maybe the concept is the same, but there are things that are different as well. And Vincent saying that they tweak that depending on who they're playing.
Well, and Logan said repeated those words. He said it'll change based on the opposition, and that's true. But with Vincent saying the system is the same, is he referring to the system that Marty St. Louis was using at the beginning of the season, or when Marty St. Louis flipped to more of a man-to-man system, did they change too? Doesn't sound like it, but maybe Vincent didn't get the memo yet, or maybe they want to just continue teaching the hybrid system because it's something that eventually the Montreal Canadiens want to move to.
So why all the pomp and circumstance about how the Laval Rocket are doing? Well, let's just walk you through what they've done this week. They beat the Utica Comets 4-3. Then they beat the Utica Comets again 3-2. And then they won against the Providence Bruins on Friday night 2-1. The Rocket have only lost one game this season. They are 7-1 to start the season, 14 points, sitting in second place in the AHL, not in the division. Well, yes, second place in the division as well. Second place in the AHL. I mean, it's just complete night and day compared to what the parent club is doing. That's why I say, if you want to get excited about it, being a Habs fan and watching hockey, come join us on the Laval Rocket ride, because we've got all the coverage for you, and there's a lot of good things happening down there.
That said, Pascal Vincent wasn't happy with the win on Friday night against the Bruins.
No.
And as Chris G reported, he was upset about their face-offs, that they lost 66% of the face-offs, said they were chasing the play, and didn't like the zone exits. Canadians have that problem, that the Bruins had kept them bottled up in their own zone. So, expect some changes for Saturday afternoon.
That's right. Chris also covers the Trois-Rivières Lions for us. That is the ECHL affiliate of the Montreal Canadiens. They had a couple of wins against the Reading Royals this week. They did lose to Adirondack, but they did manage to beat the Reading Royals a couple of times this week. And so they've pulled kind of almost even for themselves on the season. They're now 2-1 on the season, sitting in the middle of the pack at 15th in the ECHL. So some improvements going on compared to the first week or so of the season for Trois-Rivières.
And their first 2 wins of the season.
That's right. With that being said, we talked about how, things are not going well, obviously, in Montreal right now. They're in a number of different aspects. And so naturally, some of the national analysts and pundits and whatnot are going to start weighing in on this. Elliotte Friedman did so he and Kyle Bukauskas on this week's 32 Thoughts podcast. And Friedman had, well, you got a sneak peek of it in the title of this episode. Friedman had some strong words regarding where the Canadiens find themselves at this point in time.
The best way to build up your strength as a destination is to do it through drafting and developing. And Montreal has a lot of players. Like, I look at them and I see a lot of guys who could be good players on a good team, but it doesn't happen fast. And now your fans are starting to get a bit restless. You're losing games in a pretty lopsided way, and that is to some degree fixable. You have to change the way you play, and I'm sure they're going to work on that. But Montreal's in the danger zone now where you're worried about making a deal that you regret. This is not a process that you can, unless the one difference is Panarin. Panarin dropped on the Rangers' laps. He said, "Hey guys, I want to come here." And they're like, "Rebuild's over." So unless someone drops on your lap and you can say rebuild's over, you have to go through this. And the biggest mistake you can make is to accelerate the process and you make a deal that you look back at in 5 years and you look and say, boy, that one's going to be on my tombstone forever. And I think Gorton and Hughes are completely aware of that. I don't think it's easy. I don't think they like the way they're losing right now is a problem, and they're going to have to address that. But I think if people believe that the Canadiens can really accelerate this now, I think you're probably, as the kids say now, delulu. Show me the deal that makes sense. Show me the deal that makes sense.
Lot there. That's a longer clip than we usually play, but wanted to give you the full context of what Elliotte said on the 32 Thoughts podcast. Fans are restless, and the Canadiens are in a position that they're ripe to make. Think of Marc Bergevin, ripe to make a panic trade. Ken Hughes and Jeff Gordon have said, we're sticking to the plan. We're not going to sacrifice our long-term plans for a short-term fix. They've said that many times over, but you understand the pressure. You understand, they expect more this year. Marty expects more. The players expect more, and it hasn't happened. And there's tough words being said inside the team and outside the team. And that may cause you to make a trade that later you'll regret. So that's why Elliotte Friedman uses a phrase that they're in the danger zone right now, because it's awfully tempting to kind of bring the noise down a little bit. The bit at the beginning where he said they're not a destination, the conversation that happened prior to that, he said that the Montreal is not a destination for players right now. They have some good players, but for all the reasons, and everybody knows the reasons: taxes, weather, education system, all that sort of thing. It's not a destination. It will be when all the pieces start to come together, but not right now. So that makes it even tougher to make a trade or bring in someone. And you have to deal with no trade clauses and that sort of thing. But the fans are restless. They're these lopsided losses. And Montreal is right now in the danger zone.
Danger zone is not where they want to be. I won't even joke about singing Kenny Loggins. All right, we're going to come back to this more, obviously, in the second segment, when we talk about the expectations and recalibrating things and where they go from here. Before we get there, though, just a few notes from around the hockey world. First at the NHL level, the Global Series continues. The Dallas Stars and the Florida Panthers are in Finland this weekend, playing Friday and Saturday. Florida coming out with the victory, but boy, let me tell you, Friday's fans who attended this game in Finland, no shortage of goals. Florida won 6-4. And there were plenty of players and even a coach who the Finns were able to heartily welcome to their home country. It was pretty fun.
4 members of the Panthers from Finland, and the assistant coach you mentioned, Tumo Ruutu, and the Stars have Roope Hintz, Esa Lindell, Miro Heiskanen. So lots of good representation. You said there was lots of goals. There was also an unbelievable save, kind of Carey Price-esque, Jake Ottinger getting the paddle out and nonchalantly just made this spectacular save. And if you weren't all that inspired by what happened on the ice, it was, with these special games, with the outdoor games, with the global games, the team usually does something a little bit different as far as the way they arrive at the rink. Yeah. So it was Florida that arrived in bathrobes. Representing.
When in Finland, you must sauna.
Yes. So they arrived in bathrobes, and Alexander Barkov was quick to run away from. Now, it wasn't me, he said. You can blame Matthew Tkachuk for that idea. So they when they came into the Nokia Arena, they were all decked out in bathrobes. Paul Maurice and GM Bill Zito and the head coach Paul Maurice decided not to join in with the bathrobe idea.
Does this mean that Sylvain Lefebvre did not opt out?
No news on that.
Oh boy.
Maybe it was the whole entire coaching staff.
We might have to ask him the next time we talk to him. But
Paul, that led to a quote, yeah.
Yeah, Paul Maurice, when of course asked about what come on, Paul, team first, right? He says, quote, well, to generalize from the coaching standpoint, the number one rule of coaching is never to let them see you naked. That's the priority, so you can keep some self-respect.
Number one.
End quote. Yeah, I didn't realize. I wonder how many other coaches, if we said, what's the number one priority in coaching, how many of them would say, obviously, it's just to not let the team see.
Interesting head coaching matchup, Paul Maurice and Pete DeBoer. Two very good coaches. Yeah. They were also on the same coaching staff in junior hockey many, many years ago, and are still good friends.
On a more serious note, this is an interesting development just in the last 24 hours that the NHLPA has formed a CTE advisory committee made up of 10 active players. Of course, CTE stands for chronic traumatic encephalopathy, which in layman's terms is repeated injury to the brain, repeated concussions, repeated blows to the head, that type of thing, which we've heard so much about in other contact sports and in hockey. But this is now the first time that the hockey world in the NHL category has formed an official committee. And I think it's a great step forward.
Yeah, it's positive. In putting context to it, we remember that Gary Bettman, even as recent as last year, has denied any kind of connection between concussions and the symptoms, the deterioration of CTE. Although we know that other leagues have acknowledged it and are taking steps, and I think in this case the NHLPA is going to do its own research and they'll have to decide what measures need to be implemented, whether that's rule changes and what. I mean, you're not going to eliminate it from it's a physical sport. What level of risk that players are willing to accept?
Finally, in this category, before we take our first break and then talk about that danger zone that the Habs find themselves in, Sportico, everyone always loves when this happens. Sportico released its annual report of NHL franchise evaluations. Would you believe that NHL team values have nearly doubled over the past 3 years? The average NHL franchise is now valued at $1.79 billion. That's 37% more in the last year.
The numbers are just
staggering,
hard to fathom. The Leafs stay at number one, $3.66 billion valuation. New York Rangers at 3.25, and the Canadiens getting close to that $3 billion plateau at $2.93 billion, up 29% in the last year alone. $2.93 billion, Mr. Jeff Molson.
Up 29% in the last year alone. Didn't we start the season talking about how the Canadiens jacked up concession prices?
Well, and ticket prices, and this is Sportico's valuation. We'll get Forbes's. It usually follows quite closely, and Forbes talks about the revenue, the yearly revenue, which the Canadiens are usually between the $100 million and $200 million mark. So there's plenty of cash, and should be no reason that some isn't sprinkled around on the team.
All right. Well, it is just about time for us to dig into this big topic segment coming up. But first, let's take our first commercial break. We have a new offer for you. You're going to hear from our sponsors at DraftKings during this commercial break. But before that, Raycon is back as one of our sponsors for the show. Here is an honest to goodness plug. I have a pair of Raycon earbuds that I use every single day. And I'm going to tell you more about that in this commercial break coming up. But a really great incentive for our listeners around the Black Friday, Cyber Monday weekend kind of thing. So, and you can actually get in on it now. So we are going to take a quick break. I want you to listen to that, take advantage of it. It's a great deal. And when we come back, we are going to sink our teeth into the big topic segment. So stay with us. This is the Canadiens Connection podcast on Rocket Sports Radio. Oh boy, it is November. And you know what that means? Black Friday and Cyber Monday are just a few short weeks away. And it's such an exciting time of year. With Raycon, you get an amazing deal on premium audio products every day of the year. But hey, that doesn't mean they're not having any sales for Black Friday or Cyber Monday. No, far from it. Guess what? They're actually doubling down on their amazing value by offering our viewers up to 30% off site-wide. My favorite product of theirs, Raycon's Everyday Earbuds. I use these earbuds every single day. Plenty of new features that make them kind of more of a must-have for audio lovers. There's now a 32-hour battery life on them and multi-point connectivity that lets you pair with 2 devices at once. Having good noise cancellation can be difficult to find with a pair of earbuds at a really accessible price point, but not with Raycon's Everyday Earbuds. Raycons start at just half the price as the other guys, which was what was really surprising for me the first time I tried the Everyday Earbuds, because I'm a voice actor by trade. So I have some pretty high quality headphones, both over the ear and in-ear earbuds, from some pretty big names. And I was really surprised at how good the quality of the Raycons are, particularly given their price point. So they're already an incredible deal before you even factor in their Black Friday or Cyber Monday offer of up to 30% off site-wide. Those kinds of deals at those kinds of prices means you could pick up a pair or 2 of Raycon's Everyday Earbuds as an amazing gift for somebody for the holidays, and also pick up a pair for yourself as well. I mean, why not? Now is the perfect time to scoop them up if you haven't done so already. And don't worry, if you're not as impressed with them as I am, don't worry about it. Raycon offers a 30-day happiness guarantee, so you really can't lose. It is time to save big for Black Friday and Cyber Monday. Go to buyraycon.com/THPN today to get up to 30% off site-wide. That's right, you'll get up to 30% off
everything on Raycon's website when you go to buyraycon.com/THPN. The quest for the Stanley Cup starts now. The puck's dropping on the 2024-25 season. Get in on all the action at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NHL. It's super easy for first-timers to get started. Try betting on something simple like picking your favorite team to win. Go to the DraftKings Sportsbook app, select your team, and place your first bet. And if you're new to DraftKings, listen up. New customers, bet just $5 and you'll get $200 in bonus bets instantly. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use code THPN. That's code THPN for new customers to get $200 in bonus bets when you bet just $5. Only on DraftKings. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort, Kansas, 21 plus age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/ice. Copyright NHL 2024, all rights reserved.
And welcome back to the Canadiens Connection podcast here on Rocket Sports Radio. Once again, I am Amy Johnson, and if you'd like to follow my coverage of the Canadiens and their prospects on Twitter, you can do so at Flyers Rule. And with me in the studio is our president and founder of Rocket Sports, Rick Stevens. You can follow him on X or Twitter for all of our Canadiens updates and coverage and so forth. And you can follow him at Rocket Sports. Don't forget to hit subscribe, whatever podcast player you are currently listening to this episode on, or if you're watching on YouTube, just take a second and tap that subscribe button there as well. And also follow the podcast on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Habs Connection. All right. Just one side note before we dig into this big topic. New news out about Ivan Demidov. Breaking. Just out.
Yeah, he was named to the KHL's all-rookie team for the month of October. So congratulations. And another honor.
The accolades keep growing.
Yeah.
All right. From training camp, the Canadiens organization has been sending really not so subtle messages to its fans and players about expectations, really, for the season. And that's naturally elevated what everybody has kind of had their sights set on for this season. The Habs are off, unfortunately, to the opposite of that, a very disappointing start. And that's prompted the head coach to use words like fragile and immature and, my goodness, nauseating to describe his own team. And there was a reporter that asked him, can you understand the fans getting so frustrated? And Marty St. Louis said, yeah, for sure I do. I get it. I'm disappointed like they are, and I understand where they're coming from. Not exactly the vote of confidence you want from your head coach, but okay. So, Rick, it's definitely, and it's at first, when it was preseason, it was easy to say, okay, Guhle got injured and Laine got injured. This is gonna make things difficult this season. Well, we're beyond those injuries at this point because the stuff that's been going. A, Caden Goule's back, but B, the collapse that they're experiencing has nothing to do with the fact that Patrick Laine is not in the lineup right now. There's just too many things piling up on top of one another, and so I guess the best way to combat that is to bag skate your players.
Well, there's the coach has a number of tools, deciding who's on the roster, deciding who's in and out of the lineup, who's scratched at any time, deciding how he allocates ice time, putting together lines. Marty St. Louis has used all of these things. He's certainly met with them in the video room individually and collectively. He's sent messages. He's tried to teach, and the same thing, the same mistakes keep on happening, particularly on the defensive side. So there's not many other levers he has, and one that's pretty extreme, at least in the National Hockey League, it's thought of as extreme, is the bag skate. The call them whatever you want them, the bag skate suicides. The Canadiens were doing half ice suicides. The players called them mountain
climbers.
The mountain, because it feels like you're climbing a mountain. And Marty is wanting to wake them up, wanting to get their attention, wanting to break these bad habits that keep happening, and in his words, change the mindset of this group. And it was, I mean, he certainly got the attention. The bag skates came at the end of practice, and it was a tough practice as it was. It was very intense practice on Friday. It was all about setting up drills to make sure that they competed hard. There was 2-on-2 drills. Everyone was about winning battles and competing. And then at the end of that,
when they're already gassed,
when they're already out of and putting this, doing the half ice suicides, and he said loud enough for everybody to hear, "This is what you're going to get." I don't know what that means,
right.
But he was unhappy with Thursday's game, and he was happy. He's been unhappy with several games, but particularly Thursday's game, where he felt that they gave away, that it was self-inflicted, and he wanted to get their attention, break this mindset, and put them through the torturous bag skates.
Well, it's I think it was RDS had put out a montage of video clips from that practice and from that skate. You saw guys like Brendan Gallagher just completely laid out on the ice. Caden Gooley sitting on the ice with his back propped up against the boards, looking like he was going to be sick. I mean, it's grueling. It's not something you want to experience very often.
You don't want to hear that whistle. The whistle to start and stop. It just, that is, it just worms its way into your brain.
Yeah, exactly. So I guess one of the questions, there's a lot of questions that have now really bubbled to the surface over the last week and a half to 2 weeks, that Marty isn't able to ignore anymore. The media is not able to ignore anymore. Fans aren't able to ignore anymore. Lots of questions. One of which is, do the players have to be better? And I think in some cases, absolutely. I think there are definitive, and we've talked about it a little bit over the course of the last couple of episodes on this show, that there are definitely players who are not pulling their weight.
Yeah, and I think this isn't one issue. I think there are a number of issues here, and do players have to be better? Do players have to be held to account for their kind of play? And I think that was part of the bag skate as well, is making the players accountable. Do they have to be better? Yeah, I think so. And we're gonna talk about it in a minute. There's a number of questions here and a number of areas that are having problems. But I think there was an interesting article, TVA identified 7 players that absolutely need to be better.
They did. Do you want to get to those now?
In a minute. Let's go through these questions, because do the players have to be better? The second one, it's not only the players who are need to be accountable, but the coaching staff too. And I guess you have to ask, are the coaches' messages getting through? And we've talked about the defensive system over and over and over again, and it's just simply one example of the teaching and the coaching messages that are going through. And one of the things, given some of the questions we've received, I just want to make a point here that there aren't just three types of defensive zone systems, man-to-man, zone, and hybrid. And I'm going to make it's going to sound like a subtle difference, but it's an important difference. There aren't just three different systems. There are three ways to categorize defensive systems. So there's a bunch of systems that fall into the man-to-man, bunch of systems, depending on the coaching method and the coaching staff, that describe zone coverage, and a bunch of different systems that describe the hybrid system. Because we've talked about, don't criticize the hybrid system because Tampa Bay used it pretty effectively to win the Stanley Cup. Well,
which version of the
which
system?
Version of it? Who was teaching it? How is it? How is it set up? It's not three systems. It's three ways to categorize. So just because you're using a hybrid system in Montreal doesn't mean it's the same hybrid system that's being used and taught in Tampa.
As far as are the coaches' messages getting through, I don't know at this point. It was when Marty was hired, one of the things that we said in our, questioning the fact that he had no professional coaching experience was how long would his coaching style, given his lack of experience, be sustainable? And at what point was there going to be a corner that is turned where and ironically, Elliotte Friedman talked a bit about this on 32 Thoughts as well, where it gets to there comes a time where the feel-good coaching that Marty does that makes players, young players in particular, excited to come to the rink, at some point it has to turn a corner and change and level up to a more competitive style of coaching, not so much development minded necessarily. And I'm wondering if that crossroads is rapidly approaching at this point.
It's a good question because you have a coach who is admired for the way he can inspire players and the way he can motivate players. Now at the point where he's teaching strategy, where he's teaching X's and O's. Teaching a system is about getting through to your players and teaching X's and O's. And there's nobody who says that Marty has experience doing that. He's using his way of getting through to the players, and it hasn't been working. Is it Marty's message? Does he need help? Does he need a more experienced defensive coach on the staff? Something. There's accountability, and that accountability has to be spread to the coaching staff as well.
I'll just, before we move on here, I'll just also add that I'm not sure that Stéphane Robidas is an effective coach at his position either, and so that could be an issue as well. Another question is more patience required, and I would say yes, because we've said even from the start of the season they're not there yet. The patience is still needed. There are still development processes that this team and its younger players have to go through. But I would also say that patience is required in terms of the development aspect of the team. But I think it's reasonable for patience to be running out for other aspects that the same mistakes keep getting repeated and not getting fixed.
Yeah, and I mean, in general, it's hard to be patient in Montreal. It's hard to be patient for Habs fans, and it's hard to be patient when you're an owner, when you're a general manager, when you're you want to see progress. Rebuilds take time, and I think it's to decide at the beginning of the year, or to acknowledge that this year we're looking at playing for a top 5 draft pick, so we can continue our rebuild. I think that patience had worn thin. 3 years, and going into the fourth year of the rebuild, Canadiens fans wanted to see progress, and it's not their fault that they expected it, because the organization signaled that this was going to be a new year. They put out that vague message in the mix and left it to fans to interpret how they wanted to. But they also talked about, we expect to be playing meaningful games. They're not playing meaningful games right now, and we're playing in a meaningful way. And the organization raised expectations. It didn't just come from the fan base. And Marty St. Louis said that he was going to expect more from his group. I think Canadiens fans, with respect to patience, they want to see progress. And are we seeing that? Are the Canadiens looking better than they did last year? Because that's what fans want to see, and certainly that's what management wants to see as well. So I think, is more patience required? Sure, absolutely, but it's yes or no, yes and no. Mm-hmm. That yes, more patience is required, but that doesn't let people off, from being accountable.
Finally, should fans be concerned about a panic move? That thing that Friedman referenced in that quote we listened to in the first segment. For me, yes, I would be concerned about a panic move, because it's absolutely what they should not do at this juncture. I'm not too concerned, because I think that Jeff Gorton especially understands what a rebuild really means, and he understands that you have to stick to your plan even when the going gets really tough. And I think that has worn off on Kent Hughes a little bit as well. So I have faith that they're not going to do something to jeopardize all the pain that the team and the fans have been through in the last 3 years, because that would be the worst thing.
All the warning signs are flashing. It's,
Well, put them out.
The DEFCON lights have been elevated.
Just ignore them. That check engine light, you can just keep driving.
That's what the management has to do right now, is ignore that temptation, unless and that was basically what Elliotte Friedman's quote was all about, talking about danger zone. But he said, unless you get a gift from heaven and a Panarin is dropped in your lap. That's right. What he was talking about there. That's what happened to Jeff Gorton. But you can't certainly count on that.
No, you can't. So let's get to that list that you mentioned. TVR Sports put out a list of, basically, this particular article was patience has run out for TVR as far as these players who need to turn their game around. And this is, it kind of goes to what I was saying a moment ago about there are absolutely players who are not pulling their weight. And I have to say, top to bottom, I concur with every single entry that TVR Sports has on this list.
Yeah, and I should say this came out after after Tuesday's game against the Kraken. So
before the
Capitals game, they intro it by saying the Canadiens will miss the playoffs for a fourth consecutive time, and as fans know, that would be a first if they maintain their current pace. And they have to avoid other disastrous nights like Tuesday's game against the Kraken. So let's just quickly go through the 7 players that they say have to be better.
And who do they put front and center, stage front, right up top? Sam Montembeault. And boy, I agree. And Rick, we've talked about this even last week on the show. And he's who is getting the start tonight in Pittsburgh. Sam Montembeault, everyone expected and wanted him to rise to the occasion in being a true number one in the crease. And that has crumbled in front of our eyes over the last 3 weeks, because he's gotten yanked twice in the last week and a half, something like that. Some of it is, of course, due to defensive breakdowns, but he has given up some very stoppable goals.
Yeah, he's giving up soft goals. He's and listen, maybe expectations were raised too high. There was a lot of talk about, now he can perform to his potential. The three goalie rotations out of the way. Sam is the acknowledged number one goaltender, and then raised further after the first game when the Canadiens were bombarded by the Leafs, and Montembeault had a great game. But after that, he has stumbled and not looked very good at all. Sportsnet, their stats, put out a tweet saying the Montreal Canadiens own the NHL's worst save percentage at .852 and goals against average at .456 after that season opening shutout. So that first game kind of softens the numbers a bit, but after that, it's been an absolute disaster. You look at things, and yes, acknowledge defense has been a problem. Defensive zone coverage has been a problem. But beyond that, you look at goals saved above average. Sam Montembeault is below water there, below an average goaltender. He's ranked at 44th in the league. And it's not all Sam Montembeault. Caden Primo is not very good either. Mm-hmm. He's ranked 69th in the league. And if you look at, there's lots of talk about, Caden Primo's, he's young yet, and Primo's 25 years old. Look at the best goalies in the league when it comes to goals saved above average. And you have Jake Ottinger, who I mentioned earlier. He's only 26, but you have Connor Hellebuyck, Igor Shesterkin, Ilya Sorokin. Those are established goaltenders. They're older goaltenders, but they're not leading the league. You know who's leading the league in goals saved above average? 24-year-old Lucas Dostal.
Oh.
And he plays in Anaheim. He plays for a lousy team, and he leads the league by far. You don't like goals saved above average, do goals saved above expected. Montembeault and Primo are well down the list. Primo's about ranked at 43rd, I think it is. The goaltending has been bad, and there's no way to sugarcoat it. And so TVA Sport has that's the number one person on the list, Sam Montembeault, that needs to improve.
Well, we mentioned in there that yes, the goaltending has been bad, and it certainly hasn't been helped by some of the defensive structure. And their second person on the list has been an absolute disaster. Sorry, David Savard, but absolutely, the game is literally passing him by.
Yeah, as TVA Sports says, David Savard, despite his best intentions, he can't keep up with the game. The game is happening too quickly around him, and teams that play with speed, and they point out the Penguins are one of those teams. He can't keep up, and they say that certainly for defensemen that they can go along and on even when they get to a certain level, they start declining a little bit, and then 1 year they'll just drop off a cliff, and that seems to be what's happening, at least early on, to David Savard, and that's his minutes are going to. He's there to provide stability for the young players, but it's he's not doing any of that right now. His minutes are going to have to be managed carefully.
Mm-hmm. Who do they have coming in at third? Here on this list? It's
Kirby Dach. And Kirby Dach, with injury, with return from injury, hasn't looked like himself. Hadn't played a lot, so there was rust initially for sure, but I think it's more than rust. He's playing with a brace, and he just doesn't look... it might be one of those seasons like Cole Caulfield had last year where you see we saw flashes of Caulfield, but he's going to need a season to readjust and get back to the Kirby Dach, if he can, that we know.
I'd like to think that he can. I'd like to think that Alex Newhook has a lot more to offer than what we've seen so far, because he's just been invisible, unfortunately, and that's the opposite of what the Canadiens need out of him. It just 2 goals in 10 games. He's just not doing what. I realize he was another one of those projects that was brought on that maybe he needed the change of scenery to realize the potential that's there and that type of thing, but we just haven't seen it yet. And this season, it's been very flat from Alex Newhook.
A lot of draft capital spent to bring in Alex Newhook. He was pricey. It was an overpay, no question. But the Canadiens were hoping that he would, accelerate the rebuild. He hasn't. TVA says there's only one thing is the goals and production, but he's not. He's known for his speed. He's should be good on the forecheck. He hasn't, and only twice this season has he fired more than one shot in a game. Say the folks at TVA.
It's just not. Can't let that slide. Christian Dvorak needs to be better. And we have talked about this. He's been horrendous at the faceoff dot. And just please find we're back to how I was with Mike Matheson last year. Hoping Christian Dvorak puts on, can string together a bunch of games that makes him look actually semi-attractive for maybe a trade. Because just get him off the roster at this point, please.
And Canadiens fans are most upset with Christian Dvorak because of the 5-on-3 on Thursday night, losing the face-off, the goal that happened after. You should be equally upset at the coaching staff that put him on the ice. TVA says Dvorak is true to himself, invisible, odorless, colorless, and tasteless. Okay.
Very, very, very
You
nice.
get the picture.
You do. Now, this next one is going to be controversial.
Yeah.
But I have to agree with him being placed on this list. Although I believe that he can get himself off this list, but he's got to work at it. And that's Arbor Jacki. He is going to get a shot at it tonight on Saturday night when he draws back into the lineup in place of Justin Barron. But he is starting to find himself rotating out of the lineup more than he would probably like as a healthy scratch. And it's not for a lack of being a good team guy and defending his teammates and being the tough guy and the intimidator. And that it's not because of that. It's because his play as a defenseman has been inconsistent and weak in some occasions.
Well, I think Canadiens fans look at Arbor Jacki on paper, and he's a good skater for his size, got a big shot, plays physical, good team guy, will stand up for his team. But what we've seen on the ice is a guy who is having trouble making the reads, having real trouble processing the game, and his turnovers constantly are costly. They're really costly. That has sent him to the press box. He'll get another opportunity on Saturday night.
And I've said this before. He knows that the organization is not afraid to send him to Laval if they feel that he needs to work on some things, and he certainly must be thinking of that. Another guy who must be thinking about that is Yoel Armia, who spent most of last season in Laval. And while the first couple of games of this year seemed to kind of be like he had turned things around, kind of a rejuvenated Armia, as it says here in the article, he's resumed some of his bad habits, and really isn't the effective forward that he needs to be. I just don't know if he fits on this roster any longer.
Well, I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt. He was sent to Laval twice last year, and when he came back, I thought he was very good.
Yes.
As you said, kind of continued that at the start of the season. I think Yoel Armia is being asked to do too much. I think too much is being expected of him. And yes, do the Canadiens have the players to Replace him on the second line? Probably not. But he's not meant to be there. He's not effective there. He's having trouble with the role. He's having trouble with the opposition. He's having trouble with his line mates. I think he can be. And again, this is. Do we blame Yoel Armia? We do. Do we blame the coaching staff for putting him in the wrong chair, as Marty likes to say? Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
we there needs to be some accountability there as well.
Absolutely. So, there's the list from TVS Sports of players who need to turn their game around, and I can't say that I disagree with any of that. That's a substantial amount. That's seven players. That's a third of the roster are not pulling their weight, and that is causing a lot of problems up and down the lineup. So let's get to St. Louis. Last week we shared with you some quotes from him and talked about how he reacted to critics who are starting to vocalize some doubt about his coaching abilities and so forth. This week it's his reaction to how poorly his team is playing night in and night out. And the first thing we'll get to is, as you said, he had a very colorful reaction and response to his thoughts on what happened to the Canadiens in the final period of the game against Washington on Thursday night. And, he pretty much summed it up like this.
We're in a good spot going into the third, and you just throw up all over yourself.
That's nice.
You just threw up all over yourself.
Yes.
This was very intentional. He had a message he wanted to send to his players, and that he said the same thing to his players.
Oh yeah.
And again, when he came out to the media, the throw up, the vomit references 4 times in that media availability, and understand the way things work after a game. The doors open, the players are there, and the media, go from of the players who are made available. The media go from one to another, and then the coach speaks. That's not what happened. That's not what happened after Thursday night.
No.
It was Marty St. Louis first out the door talking about vomit. Talked about it in French. Talked about it in English. He talked about that they were in a good position, then made mistakes, threw up all over. That was in French. Then he went on to say that you're supposed to be scoring. You're not supposed to be throwing up all over yourself. He went on to say, we're fragile. As a team right now, we're fragile, but this is all self-inflicted. He said, we're not throwing up because we have food poisoning. We're sticking our finger down our throat. Do you understand? ? And then the fourth time was what you just heard. We're in a good spot going into the third, and then you throw up all over yourself.
I hope no one's having their breakfast or lunch or dinner while they're listening to this. We apologize. It's, obviously he's disgusted with how his team is playing, and that then led directly into the next day finishing practice with that bag skate. So we'll see how his group responds when they play in Pittsburgh on Saturday night.
So we just read that list of 7 players that TVA has identified as they need to be better. Our listeners probably have their own list that they would add to that grouping. Marty St. Louis has his own list. And you think that Cole Caulfield is off that guys need to be better list? You think that he's happy with Cole Caulfield because of the way he's scoring? Listen to this quote.
I think he's very opportunistic. What's his shooting percentage right now?
It's around 30.
Okay, so to me that's not gonna stay like that all year. So I still think that Cole leaves stuff on the table. I think you should have more goals. And it's not. It's not about like shooting more. It's where he goes on the ice, and I'm happy for. He's up to a good start scoring wise. I think there's more there.
I think there's more there. I think he leaves things on the table. I think he should have more goals with a 30% shooting percentage. But the key line in there is it's not about shooting more. It's where he goes on the ice. And remember that last year Marty was praising Cole because he was going to the net more. He was getting different types of goals. He was playing a more complete game. And Marty said, I'm not worried about the goals that Cole is scoring. I want him to be a more complete player. I want to see him at both ends of the ice be effective. So while Canadiens fans are thrilled with Cole Caulfield scoring, I don't know that Marty St. Louis he's happy for the goals. He needs the goals. The team needs the goals. But you think about that play in Washington where, you're off to a good start. You're the goal scorer for the team. You're the sniper. You're wanting to make something happen. And that was a reckless pass by Cole Caulfield to Nick Suzuki that was easily intercepted and turned into a goal against. I think Marty St. Louis is not happy with more than just 7 players. I don't think he's happy with his top line. And you see the players that are rotated in and out of there. Emil Heineman on Thursday night, and I think that is bigger. Marty is not happy with what he's seen. Win or lose, score goals or not, make a save or not. I don't think he's happy with his group as a whole.
No, and so after that bag skate on Friday, he was asked, was this kind of a last ditch effort, a last resort option to bag skate your team like this?
No, it's not a last resort. It's part of the stage that we're in. I don't think there's last resort stuff. There's just we're going through a stage right now, and it's part of it.
Okay,
he's treating this as normal. The bag skate. It was asked because you can't. As an NHL coach, a bag skate is an extreme measure, and you can't go to that every week. And so a good question, a natural question, but Marty is seeing this is a natural progression into the team that they want to be. That there's more pressure on the players, there's higher expectations of the team, and so this is all natural. We'll see if that's indeed, if his interpretation, he could very well be right. We'll see if that's the case or not.
So let's switch gears and ask a tried and true veteran on the team his thoughts on the fact that, 1 month into the season, that the coach put them through a bag skate, and Brendan Gallagher was pretty matter of fact about it.
I mean, there's different ways to get message across. That's the most blunt way. There's not a single guy in here that felt we didn't deserve it. So you go out there, you put your head down, you work, you do it together, and now it's time for us to rectify it, move on. Got a big game tomorrow. Get our rest, get a recovery in, and get ready to compete.
Different way of sending the message is a bag skate. That's a very blunt way of sending a message. And but Brendan Gallagher is saying we deserved it.
Yeah, absolutely, we deserved it. Lane Hudson following that up with a quote of his own saying, quote, "It's always tough, but sometimes you need it, and we definitely needed it. Just kind of embracing it. It sucks to have to skate and do that and get bagged, but having to go through it with all your teammates just brings you a little closer." I can think of other team bonding exercises I think I'd prefer. And he finishes by saying, "You realize that we're all in this together," which is a mature answer for a rookie.
Yeah.
Doesn't change the fact that they got bag skated. So finally then St. Louis was asked, should expectations for this team be recalibrated at this point?
No, because to me it's the habits and the mindset. I have to get through that. And if we can get through that stage, because the other side of that stage is really nice. Okay, but we got to go through that stage right now. And I don't know if we're going to go through that stage, game 4, game 30. That's just where we are today.
So changing, do you need to adjust expectations? He said no 3 times. No.
But he doesn't know whatever this stage is. I'm really hoping this isn't going to be his new catchphrase, because it's now the second clip that we've heard him say it's the stage that we're in and we just have to go through it. But he doesn't know if that's going to be 4 games of going through it or 30 games of going through it. It's just, we're going to go through it.
Well, or I kind of interpret he kind of said he knew this was coming, whether it would happen early in the season or midway through the season, and I think he's really trying to break the players. He keeps saying, I have to change their mindset. So he's seen something, and what he's seeing is not a team that wants to work, not a team that wants to compete, not a team that wants to focus on doing the hard work. And he's going to break them of that, and it's going to be uncomfortable while all of that is happening. It's going to be uncomfortable for players, and it's certainly going to be uncomfortable for the fans who are watching the games.
Well, and he also went on, didn't he, to talk about changing certain habits, changing the mindset, and where winning is important right now, right?
Yeah, he said that it's not about winning 1 game and losing 2, and he said if you don't change the mindset, you don't have an opportunity to win 4, 5, 6 games in a row, to go on these streaks that's needed to become a good team.
Well, at this point, I think people would be satisfied if they won just 1 game. And maybe they can start that tonight on the road in Pittsburgh. We'll see if, as you said at the top of the show, this is 2 defenses that are really struggling. And we know at least that Montreal's goaltender and Sam Montembeault is struggling. So it's not going to be an easy task for them to get back in the win column on Saturday night. But maybe, they got to start somewhere before it gets much worse. So here's our question of the week, our Canadiens connection question of the week for all of you. With the direction things are going at this point, and you just heard from the TVR Sports article that if they continue on this pace, the Canadiens would miss the playoffs for a 4th consecutive season. Would you be satisfied, you as a Habs fan, if this season results in another top 5 draft pick in 2025? We all know what that means. That means that they finish in the bottom 5 positions in the league. Would you be satisfied at this stage if they got another top 5 draft pick in 2025? Or are you done with that? Send us a text, 585-3-ROCKET, or leave a comment in the YouTube video or on one of our social media channels. We definitely want to hear from you on that, because it is getting to that point, where as one of the questions was in this segment, is the patience running out and is more patience required? How do you feel about the trajectory currently for the Canadiens and their end results for this season? While you think about that and leave us a reply, we're going to take our last break here on the Canadiens Connection podcast. We're going to hear, despite the fact that they're losing, the Canadiens are still a very fun team to go watch play live. And our friends over at Game Time have some great incentives and some dollars off if you buy tickets for a Canadiens game or a concert or a show, anything like that, through their app. So you're going to hear from them in a moment. When we come back, we've got some great comments from all of you regarding last week's Canadiens Connection question of the week that we want to read. And lots of fun coming up. So stay with us. You are listening to the Canadiens Connection podcast right here on Rocket Sports Radio. Getting back to watching Habs games on TV most nights of the week is pretty fun it's even better when you can experience the Canadiens live. Whether they're at home at the Bell Center or on the road, Game Time will have you covered this season to get you the best opportunities for great deals on seats to see your favorite NHL team live. Game Time sets itself apart from other third-party ticket sellers in a lot of ways. You're going to filter out all the fluff with the Game Time app, and you're just going to get incredible deals on great seats so that you don't have to waste a lot of time sifting through thousands of ticket offers on other apps. So let's just take a look here. And I'm just taking a look at their interactive ticket map, and I'm seeing that ticket prices on Game Time are starting at $62. I'm even seeing, though, if you want to get down in the reds, there are tickets under $200 down in the reds, and I'm talking like in the lower third of the reds. There are some great deals. What else do I love about the app? Seat views before you buy. If there is one thing that I am obsessive about when I'm buying tickets for a hockey game or even for concerts and shows and things like that, which Game Time also has tickets available for, I want to know, particularly if it's at a venue that I'm not necessarily familiar with, like say I'm checking out a Habs game on the road, I want to know exactly what my view from my seat is going to look like. And Game Time, its app, has a really cool feature that you get a panoramic example of what your seat that you're looking at purchasing will look like before you get to buy it. Lowest price guarantee, event cancellation protection. They even have a feature that you can toggle on their app called all-in pricing, which shows the complete total to buy the tickets up front, including any taxes and fees and things like that, so that you don't get any surprises at checkout when you think, oh, well, let me just buy these tickets for $100, and then you go to checkout and it ends up costing you $180 or something like that. You know, you're going to get all-in pricing right up front. Lowest price guarantee, or Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Love that. And ticket coverage. Your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets, whether it's for the NHL or for a concert or a show. Take the guesswork out of buying those tickets with Game Time picks. And we've got a great incentive for our listeners. Thanks to the folks over at Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account. It's free. It's simple. All you have to do is punch in your email address. I just did it today. And use code THPN for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply, but again, create an account and redeem code THPN for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game Time. And welcome back to episode 320 of the Canadiens Connection podcast here on Rocket Sports Radio. Don't forget, follow us at Habs Connection on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Make sure you hit that subscribe button on your podcast player or on YouTube. We don't ever want you to miss an episode. And of course, text us anytime on the Rocket Sports text line 5853 Rocket. I just mentioned the YouTube channel. In case you missed it, be sure you check out the two videos that we have there for you this week, one of which is last week's episode of the Canadiens Connection podcast with Marty St. Louis sounding off on his critics. And then on Thursday, I had a new episode of Rocket Hockey Report out called Laval Rocket's Solid Roster Mix is Dominating the Division. And you'll definitely want to watch that for an in-depth recap of how the Canadiens prospects and the Laval Rocket are performing. Also, remember, go and check out our game recaps and written content at hockeybuzz.com. Jump into the comments section on any of our articles there for some pretty fun back and forth with a lot of a very big community of Habs fans. You don't want to miss that. But really, we want to hear from you the answer to this week's Canadiens Connection question of the week. I'll give it to you one more time. Will you be satisfied if this season results in another top 5 draft pick next summer in 2025 for the Montreal Canadiens. Let us know. You know how to reach us, 585-3-ROCKET, or leave us a comment. Now, last week, Rick, well, before we get to what last week's question was, I think you have a text from the prior week's Canadiens Connection question of the week.
Yeah, the previous week we asked in the Canadiens Connection question of the week, it was which player has surprised you, and B, who needs to step up for the Canadiens to be in the mix. And this came on the Rocket Sports text line, and it came from Jake Aubin in Montreal. And Jake says, as far as who has surprised, he said, Jakub Dobas sure impressed me. I wasn't familiar with his game because I don't watch Laval, but it's reassuring to know we have solid backups for Primo this year if we need it. Also, I think Arbor Xhekaj, needs to step up. It would have been easy to say Doc, but I'm willing to give him more games. Xhekaj doesn't have any excuses. I'm a big Arbor fan. I love him to death, but I think he needs a couple of games in the press box. He got some. Earn your chair, but more importantly, keep it. Thanks, guys. Keep up the good work. I never miss an episode, and I'm looking forward to next week. So thank you to Jake Aubin.
Absolutely. And so last week's Canadiens Connection question of the week was talking about how it's been a kind of a cushy ride for Marty St. Louis so far in his tenure as an NHL head coach. Not too much criticism. So we wanted to ask our listeners, how do you think he's doing handling his first taste of pressure? I'll let you go first on this. We've got some great responses from some of our YouTube viewers.
On YouTube, at she_26 says, great show again. I've always liked the way you keep it honest no matter what. In my opinion, I find it absolutely awful that not just the rookies, but the vets are trying to learn this system on top of all the other improvements that they also need to work on. I feel badly for the team. I could not stop laughing at Rick's feelings towards Aaron Rodgers. Plus, I had some personal feelings.
Yes,
being a Vikings fan on Aaron Rodgers. But she goes on to say, plus the same basic reply comparison was hilarious, and that was Marty St. Louis borrowing Aaron Rodgers' quote. She goes on to say, since I'm not a huge fan of Marty St. Louis and listen to him in pressers, I can't say that I ever believe him. I think he'll act like he has everything under control, but I won't be buying what he's selling. And I think that, there's some of that that's come out this week that things got a little bit out of control, as she said.
That's right. Also, a couple of different comments left from at Habinations, who is another frequent commenter on our YouTube channel. He says, I have some advice for Marty St. Louis that he won't take. Assuming all fans are the same was a mistake. My suggestion to him is get better at coaching. He assumes his job is safe. What if we don't want him anymore? Fans have all the power. Don't poke the bear. The bear always wins. Go Habs, go. It's a good point, and certainly a good comment. He also left a comment on the video that I just talked about, the Rocket Hockey Report video that I just did on Thursday about how well Laval's doing, and he left a comment there saying, "I'm very happy with Pascal Vincent and his coaching staff. Hopefully all goes well and they dominate the AHL." And that would be great.
Just in case you got the impression from his first comment that he just doesn't like coaches.
No, he's very happy with Pascal Vincent.
Very happy with Pascal Vincent.
That's right. So as we always say, be sure to send us a message, drop us a comment to this week's Canadiens Connection question of the week, or any other just comments or questions you might have about the Habs and their prospects in general. And we will be sure to read some of our favorite responses on the next Canadiens Connection podcast, which of course will take place next Saturday, November 9th, on podcast platforms. It will come out on YouTube then the following Monday, which would be November 11th. So We always appreciate hearing from you. We love sitting down and talking about the Habs with you for a bit of time every week. And let's just hope that maybe Saturday night will be the beginning of a turnaround, and we'll have some more happy news next week. But regardless if it's good, bad, or in the middle, you can count on us being here. Rick, it was another great show today. Wishing you again an early happy birthday on Tuesday. I hope they get a win for you on that day.
Thanks so much.
And thank all of you for tuning in to the Canadiens Connection podcast right here on Rocket Sports Radio.
Click subscribe so you never miss an episode of Canadiens Connection. Follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Rocket Sports.